Good morning, third year. Today we're going to look at response and survival, growth and development. So we're going to look at the process of growth in plants very quickly, the growth in animals and its limitations, and some examples of organisms of different life cycles. So first we look at plants. Growth is the irreversible increase in mass of an organism. So that means that it gets bigger and it doesn't then get smaller. Sometimes when we have a really, really big meal, we blow out, but then a couple hours later, we're a lot smaller again. That's not what growth is. Growth is when you get bigger and it doesn't then go back down again. Water content can vary a lot in organisms, so we often look at dry mass. So funnily enough, for dry mass, the individual has to be dead because you have to completely remove all the water from the individual. And that means that you can see how much it's grown by, not just how big a drink of water it's just had. Growth involves taking up chemicals and making new structures. And it can be measured by things like height and cell number. So quite often in babies and children, we measure how tall they are or how big their head is. That's a good indicator of size. So if you think about it, how did you get so big? Did you constantly gain slowly over time? Did you make a sudden jump where you went from 6 inches tall to 25 inches tall? Did you molt? Did your skin fall off and suddenly you were a lot bigger? How did you get bigger? So if we were to look at some examples of different animals, you would find that humans get constantly bigger. We have growth spurts at certain times, but that's just when our growth rate increases a lot more than normal. Things like snakes and arthropods, arachnids, things like that, they quite often molt through a process called ecdysis, where inside their exoskeleton they get really, 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 really big until they're pushing at the limits of their skin, and then it cracks and they kind of balloon out from how big they were. So they make a sudden big jump. Things like trees tend to be constant growth, but unlike us, where we grow in all directions at all times, especially as you get older, trees will only grow at certain points. So they have what are called meristems, where they get bigger up or they get bigger out. Trees we might be familiar with, they have rings. So if you were to cut a tree again, to do this, you usually need to kill it or chop off one of its branches. You can count the number of rings, and that tells you how old the tree is in year. Wide rings are years which have mild temperatures with good growing conditions, maybe a lot of rainfall, maybe lots of sun. And narrow rings were where the tree was not able to put down an awful lot of growth. Moving on from growth is regeneration. So regeneration is a process by which an organism replaces lost or damaged parts. So we can do regeneration in some ways. Flowering plants are very good at regeneration. You can actually take a bit of a flowering plant, and if you put it in the right conditions, it will completely grow back up to a full plant again. We can't do that. So a piece of root or stem in a plant can grow the entire plant back up again. In animals, however, it's a little bit different. This is a gecko. They are awesome. You can chop the limb off one of these lizards, and they are able to completely regrow that limb again within about 10 weeks. That's useful because it means that if a predator attacks it and it grabs onto the lizard's limb, it's able to detach that limb and run away on its 3 remaining legs. The predator is slightly confused for a few seconds, and that gives the lizard enough time to escape. Starfish, again, as long as you don't cut through this central disc, you can chop a limb off them and they will regrow that limb through budding. So animals such as lizards, newts, starfish have excellent powers of regeneration. Lizards can regenerate new limbs. Newts and starfish can regenerate. Lizards can regenerate new tails, and newts and starfish can regenerate new limbs. Again, with a lizard, it's if a predator attacks and attaches onto the tail of the lizard, it can detach and run away. Some lizards actually have a face as the pattern on their tail to drive the predators to try and attack that part of the body rather than their actual head. Humans, like many mammals, have limited regenerative powers. If you have a big cut on your head like this gentleman here, it will scar up. We are restricted to things like healing wounds if you cut yourself, mending broken bones, replacing blood loss, and regenerating things like the liver. We can't do the full joining lots of dead people's body parts together and making a human body. If you pierce your tongue and then remove the piercing bar, it will heal back over again. If you are a very unpleasant person and hole punch a mouse's ear, it will again heal back up again in time. Things like scab formation, this covers over the area and gives the body a chance underneath to put new cells in place. So we can do a little bit. After a break, we can fix the site, but generally on an x-ray, you can always see where a break has happened. And again, you can donate blood and should donate blood if you're able to once you hit 17. Within about a couple of months, it'll be back to where you were before. The liver is one of the cool organs of the body that's actually able to do proper regeneration. You can cut half of the liver away and it will regrow. So liver transplants are quite a big thing in medicine. There is a building in the New Royal in Edinburgh, which was donated by a famous author, it was J.K. Rowling, and it is a centre of regenerative medicine, so they're doing research into regeneration. So again, this is the next little bit. You'll notice from the previous one, this is in your notes. Mammals have limited regenerative powers. This is mainly restricted to healing cuts, mending broken bones, replacing blood loss, and regenerating damaged liver tissue. If we could tap into how some organisms are able to regenerate much better than us, we could do things like cure lots of neurological conditions and help people who have broken their nerves, because your nerve tissue doesn't regenerate very well. You could take a moment to think about the importance of cell division and the damaged tissue and how you could repair it. Okay, that is the end of this section. We would, in the next video, move on to looking at brine shrimp. I've bought brine shrimp and I'm currently growing them up. I don't know if it's going to work. If it does, I will post a video showing you how brine shrimp grow and get bigger over time.